Yo, you want to talk about some orange and white blocks?
Orange and white blocks, blue and white, purple/reddish and white. Dude, all these blocks. We're talking about Luminous. The glorious Luminous.
Yeah, let's stick with this. There's something significant about the fact that they change colors, right? Like that definitely plays with your eyes, and it's
part of the difficulty for sure.
Yeah. Can you think of any other games that do that, or do you want to...
Where, like, a shift in color. I guess I could say maybe, like, most recently would be Tetris Effect. And I don't know if this is kind of just I don't want to say a new thing. I don't think it is a new thing across, like, these kind of falling block puzzle games. I sort of vaguely recall playing either Tetris or Luminous in the past, like almost certainly with Luminous on Xbox 360, which the game we're talking about is Luminous Remastered, which hit Xbox and PC Game Pass like some months ago, and I've been playing ever since. Like, I'm pretty sure that the tiles and stuff were changing like every so often in that game, and I think even outside of Tetris Effect, they did that. Like, there was maybe a couple Tetris games that, like, you know, was changing the looks of the Tetris pieces as you were going. One thing that I really wanted to call out that I'm excited you identified is the visual component. Like I mentioned that it's part of the difficulty, and at least for me, like, when the skins change over, I'm like, oh goodness, like, please be something that I can, like, easily identify. It's almost like trying to read the fine print of a legal document versus reading the extra large bolded crossword puzzle. Like, you can identify the solutions so much quicker because your brain can process what the puzzle piece is and kind of compartmentalize it. And I don't know what the bigger words for that are, or how that exactly works, but I know it makes my reaction time at least a lot better during certain phases than others. Like, I think for me, my favorite style of aesthetic that goes over the Luminous blocks is like I want to say it's the like big, bold, square ones.
The circles are tough. Yes. I agree.
Like, what is it to you that makes the circles difficult?
I don't know that I've ever analyzed my reaction time to different colors. The thing that stands out to me most is the moment that the color changes, right? Like, yeah. There's a real stutter that I have when trying to adjust to a change in the color. And that only lasts for like maybe like 2... I don't know that we have like units of measurement to talk about Luminous, right? But one of the main mechanics that we need to discuss is that when you try to match blocks, such as they're like squares, or, you know, they're more complex configurations, but at minimum 4 blocks that form a square pattern, right? And there's a line that passes through from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, and then it'll wrap around and start at the left side of the screen again. And so it's a scrolling bar, and it will disappear any of the blocks that you have placed in that square pattern. Oh, no, it doesn't actually happen at the very beginning, right? It happens just whenever you level up. Is that right, Lewis? Do you remember?
I think for some modes it's associated with, like, amount of stuff you cleared or points. And then in some other modes it's, like, timed. But as for does it go with the beat bar that's, like, always scanning across, I think I'm, like, very 50-50 on that. Like, I can sort of, like, make memories in my head that, like, yeah, this is totally, like, it's just like Wizard of Oz. When it passes over, like, it just gradually, like, changes all the colors.
The fact that neither of us can really, like, suss out the answer to this, even though I've played Luminous today, you know, like, within the hour, and I'm not sure, you know, and it happens so quickly, and that's why the reaction time,
it's very smooth too.
It is smooth. It is smooth.
I think that's just part of why like, we can't exactly identify it. It's not this big, like, brick wall hitting, like, moment. It's like, it's so integrated and slickly presented that it almost feels like you're just stirring milk and suddenly the Nesquik powder is being added to the milk while it's in, like, the whirlwind, you know? Like, it's just going in and becoming part of everything super, super well, smoothly.
I'm sure that was something they spent a lot of time on too. You know, like, they couldn't have it. They couldn't have the effect so jarring that it completely disrupted your gameplay and you would almost certainly lose. they needed it to be a challenge, right? But not something that would overwhelm. And that's a tough balance.
And speaking of something that you kind of abruptly introduced to the player, I think Tetris does its best to mitigate this, but it still encounters this where like you clear X number of lines and then it shifts the speed of the Tetris pieces by a hard number and immediately. So it's like, oh, okay, this many lines. And then you see like level 4 and suddenly whoosh, like it's just falling down like really fast. And you have to adapt to it immediately. Like there are times where like if you're not anticipating the level switch, then like that first piece is a test piece more or less. And the later in the game you are, the less you want, you know, unintentional moves via test pieces.
Right, as things are piling up, as you have less screen to be able to play with.
Yeah.
What makes it fun? So, like, what about Lumines is fun? You know, I mean, what sets it apart besides, I think that there is a visual appeal as things are changing, right? In the same way that, like, if you play through, like, a Mario game, let's say, right? And, you know, it's like, oh, okay, World 2 is the desert map. You know, now we're going to be in the water level. Now we're going to be in a jungle level. You know, there are these kinds of major aesthetic shifts, you know, like Super Monkey Ball has them. A lot of platformer type games have like stock level designs or tropes. You know, this is the swampy level. And to some extent, a large part of that is changing the color, right? Like signaling to the player's mind that, like these tans are associated with desert. So you're going to be getting desert vibes automatically. And then we'll add some cactuses to like really reify the desert. But this game has a kind of visual appeal because there's that like change. What else though? What else does it have going for it?
I think the two things it has going for it that really make it stand out and make me want to play it, even if I had played it, like say Tetris that same day, like I might want to play like for a 2-3 hour run of Lumines. I think it's two things. It is the integration of music, and I don't know how long this has been the case, but when I played it on 360, it felt like music was integral to the experience, but it wasn't required in order to perform well at the game. And I'm not sure how many other like block puzzlers do that. I know, you know, we all know what the Tetris theme song is to some extent. Like it's just Tetris is so popular that we kind of know its tune, but I think Lumines has like a soundtrack of songs, like a whole gaggle, a whole, you know, album of songs. And I believe they also change with the visual skins. So that's one thing, is like the music being a huge part, and you get different music that puts it as like stand out from other puzzle games. And definitely it puts it as like a different experience from Tetris. Now the other thing, and I don't know if this breaks up into two, is the quad blocks. Rather than having these like weirdly shaped puzzle pieces that are falling and having to like line them up in order to, you know, clear them, it's now you have a box and you need to rotate that box in order to have these different colored like single tiles link up to form a box. You're not forming lines still. Like the goal to clear pieces is you're making 4 same colored sections next to each other and on top of each other so that they can form a box, and then the beat line comes over and wipes them out, which is another thing. I don't know if it's called the beat line. I'm pretty sure it's like kind of referred to as that, but that's another part of like the sort of music integration in it. So like music, a much more different and enticing like goal, being the box. And lastly, cascading. Like I think especially in the falling block genre, cascading's a big fucking question. Like on the design end, when you clear lines in Tetris and you have like a segment that's like, oh, I didn't like perfectly make a line, I'm like missing a couple blocks or whatever. When you clear stuff below or above that line that's missing blocks and such, the pieces above hand don't just fall to fill it in. That's something they have changed for, I believe, Tetris Effect. That might be just part of the superpower or something, but like in Tetris Effect, they've added cascading, which is very cool. And I remember Tetris Evolution on the Xbox 360, they had cascading as like a special game mode, because cascading / gravity is just not part of Tetris as much as it is part of Tetris to kind of sound goofy about it. But with Luminous, cascading is always there. Even in the like first 2 or 3 tutorial missions, they teach you how to split your block in order to clear other tiles. And I think that provides like a whole new dimension and direction for the puzzle that is like very appealing. Like you are trying to think ahead in a new way. Where Tetris is like, hey, set up all these blocks so that, you know, you just slot in the key for the last line and then they all clear out. It feels much more like with each block in Luminous, you are looking at it as, where is this useful immediately? Plus, where is it going to be useful either in the next second or after, like, I clear these 1 or 2 things near it?
Cascading is a really good note. Like, the gravity really does change the style of gameplay and gives you a new strategy to employ that you wouldn't necessarily think of with Tetris. One thing, you know, I like that you brought up Tetris in general, though, and, you know, one thing that I think of is how much easier it is to get, like, an all clear in Tetris than it is to do so for me at least, in Luminous.
I agree, yeah.
And the board is much bigger, I think, is part of the reason. It's a very, like, wide screen that you have access to. And there are things like, if you have, let's say you're playing orange and white, right, and you clear all the orange blocks, so there are just white remaining, there will be a bonus for the color, like for having a single color left. And then there's an even greater bonus for having no tiles at all. But it just seems like it takes so long to try to get to an all clear. And I've tried to like build up to it, and it's just like something will go awry at some point. Like I will not be able to do that. Do you have a similar experience? Do you find that tough?
Yeah, the all clear I think is very difficult. I feel so satisfied when I do actually achieve it though. And I think it's usually at like the very early parts of the game. But I think the all clear is maybe far more difficult because you're not the one clearing stuff. Like you're always working against this street sweeper, the beat line that we keep coming back to. That passes over the level and clears whatever is clearable. It doesn't care if you said, oh, I want to hold on to this so I could like combo it into a lot of other stuff. It's just like, I am here. It is time to collect my toll. And then vacuums up all the blocks. And that applies another like huge time pressure that isn't present in Tetris. Like Tetris has the time pressure of the block is falling at X rate, and in a macro sense, over the course of the game, the block is going to be falling faster.
And Luminous has that as well. Luminous has the rate of block falling, but the beat line, oh my gosh, what an added mechanic. You're trying to like hover things until the beat line passes so that you can work up a combo, you know?
Yeah, and like there's bigger strategies of like, okay, do I like play the left side of the screen so that the beat line kind of gets there immediately and then I could like really work on it, put something good. Like if you're working on the left side of the screen where the beat line comes in, it'll scan from left to right. You'll basically like have like the most amount of time to work on shit. Whereas like maybe the same argument can be made for the ending side, but it feels, I don't know, it just feels much more like risky there. And also, anyway, the panic is just always there of like, the beat line cometh. Let me make sure I got all my like ducks in a row.
Yeah. Also the vein, like I don't know what these blocks are called, but they're the ones that have kind of like a blue dot in the center. And if they touch blocks of a similar color, they can kind of form a chain, and the beat line will, make all of those blocks disappear as it passes them. And that the left to right strategy that you're talking about really comes into play when you're racing that network of veins to try to clear them all.
I always think of those tiles as like corruption or infection tiles, because like they just like tendril out to whatever the same color is. And I think that part is very compelling too, because it gives the player that power / satisfying feeling of clearing a massive amount of pieces that you would normally get in Tetris, that you don't normally get in Luminous. So this power up, this corruption, this spreader tile is what like helps to supplement that, and you get that every now and then, so it feels like very special. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that with those, like, again, it's really leaning into the, like, split the block or think 2 or 3 steps ahead with each piece mentality, because it'll more often than not, you know, as you get later into the game, it'll be just like one quad of the 4 quad block, right? And you're like, I have jagged landscape all over me. I don't know like where exactly this is going to be most like maximal, you know, output. And it very often is just like, okay, I'm gonna like slam it here, and then the block is gonna break apart, and then my infection tile is gonna drop deep into this bedrock that I need to like blow out. It really is at times almost like putting dynamite down a well. Yeah, some shit like that.